Welcome. Today is Thursday, March 9th, 2023. It is 5 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is the monthly meeting of the Revere Human Rights Commission. We are meeting this month all remote on Zoom. And we will begin with doing a roll call of the commissioners. So please unmute yourself when I call your name. If you'd like to include your pronouns, you're welcome to. Reverend Tim Bogertman is not here yet. Chief Bright.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Chief Callahan is not here. Dr. Garcia, I know, is absent due to a conflict. Vice Chair Hosseini is absent due to a conflict. Commissioner McGee.
Hi, I'm present.
Thank you. Commissioner Mukabir. He may have stepped away from his screen, but he is in the Zoom meeting. Come back to that. Commissioner Pish.
Present.
I am Chair Janine Grillamara, and I use pronouns she, her. And Director Correa.
Present, I'm Claudia, and I use pronouns she, ella, her.
Thank you. And although although Director Correa is not a member, I still like to acknowledge her presence. And we'll wait till Commissioner Mukabir comes back on the screen. And I'd like to state that currently we have 9 active members on the commission, which means that 5 represent a quorum. Okay, so Madam Clerk, can you just stay in contact with Commissioner Mukabir so that I know when he actually is available that I can record him as present? Thank you. Okay. And we usually begin with a land acknowledgement, so we will do that next. I will share my screen. And we do this so that we can acknowledge and recognize those who were the original overseers of the land that we're on and the community that we're serving. We would like to acknowledge the traditional overseers of this land on which this meeting takes place, as well as honor what this land means to the culture and traditions of those who originally occupied this space. In addition, we extend a welcome to any Aboriginal, Native American, and/or First Nation people joining us today. And on the next screen, it depicts that the eastern coast of Massachusetts, in the area where Revere is located, is on the land of the Pawtucket tribe. So we just take a moment to pause and remember those who were the original overseers of this land, the history of this land. And then, as we often do, we begin our meeting with just a brief sort of silent period that's a way to arrive and settle so that we can be more present fully instead of our minds being in the past or in the future or commenting about the present. So we can just be right here, right now, and be fully present. And so I will just for a minute or so share my screen again. And if you find this helpful, this is an image that sort of might help us and support us to depict this sense of openness and spaciousness of the sky, the clarity of the water, the reflective quality, as well as the warmth of the sunlit sky, so that each in our own way, maybe over several breaths or however it's best, we can just arrive and settle and be as open, as clear, and as allowing as possible. And I will now share our mission statement so that I can read that. Usually we read it together. However, Zoom is not very friendly for having multiple voices. So please join on your own if you'd like. The mission of the Revere Human Rights Commission is to promote human and civil rights and empower all people of Revere by ensuring that everyone, especially the most vulnerable and marginalized, have equitable opportunities, equal access, and are treated with dignity, respect, fairness, and justice. Okay. So thank you. Is Commissioner Mugaber present?
I have not heard from him yet.
Okay, so he may have been detained. So the next agenda item is to approve the minutes from the February 2nd monthly meeting, but we need a quorum to do that. And since he is not actively on the screen, we will come back to that and just go on. The next section is the public comment or open forum section. It's an opportunity for questions and comments about agenda items. Madam Clerk, do we have any guests here?
We do not.
We do not. Okay, so then we do not need to have the public comment or open forum period. And we'll move on to monthly acknowledgements. So in case you're not aware, March is Women's History Month, and yesterday, March 8th, is International Women's Day. And in honor of this, if you have been driving by Broadway, there's a banner that the HRC created and recommended a couple of years ago that's hanging on the front of City Hall. Also, the Revere School Department and the HRC collaborated to create a program where many leaders in the community who identify as female were interviewed, and they had a chance to speak about what International Women's Day means to them, as well as how they have been influenced by different female leaders and what it's been like for each of them individually, their journey in how they've become a leader. And so that was aired yesterday in honor of International Women's Day. It was aired on Revere TV, and it will be showing throughout the month. So if you're like me, you might have it on your actual TV that you can go to the channel and watch it on RCN or Comcast Infinity, or you can go to the Revere TV YouTube page, and it'll be sort of one of the featured programs for the month. Also, the city yesterday, the Human Resources Department yesterday hosted an event at City Hall for some employee education to educate the employees about Women's History Month and International Women's Day. So these are small steps that we're taking and that we want to really build upon as we continue, so that next year these can be more involved, more interactive, and have more activities in the course of the month. But we're at least taking steps to try to acknowledge this. Do any of the members or director have any comments or questions?
Well, actually, I just want to acknowledge Chief Bright. He sent over his staff to join us during the celebration yesterday at City Hall. Many of the employees, not just women, acknowledged that this was great for them. Many of them didn't know that celebrating women's history goes so far back, and it was a good learning experience for them. So Chief, thank you for supporting us and sending your team and making sure that women were celebrated. We really appreciate it. But we were very happy to have a good number of people join us in celebrating with us. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Clerk, I appreciate that, Claudia, and Nancy and Alyssa had a great time. They enjoyed the program. And I think this is something that, like Janine said, to start building on, and it's long overdue. And, I think it was fantastic. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll have an opportunity as we go through the agenda to actually talk about activities in general. So I don't see any hands raised or anyone unmuting themselves. So I will go on. And actually, I need to pull this up to share. It's one document I forgot to pull up. Just give me a moment. Okay. All right. So this next agenda item, the proposed HRC vision, to give you just a little bit of history. When we were creating the mission statement, we had a mission statement subcommittee, and we had different public meetings to talk about the mission statement. There was a lot of great input in language that came out of those discussions and meetings. And now that we have a new director, we're sort of coming back and elaborating on the mission statement. So I am going to share a proposed vision, and this is coming straight from language that came out of those meetings. It's not language I just made up on my own. So it's coming from those subcommittee meetings. And so I'll share my screen. And it's also on the agenda so that the public could see it. The HRC proposed vision: a thriving Revere where all community members live free of racism, poverty, violence, and other systems of oppression, and where everyone has equitable access, opportunities, and resources, as well as a sense of belonging. So I'll just leave that there for a moment so that you can see that. Okay, and a thriving Revere where all community members live free of racism, poverty, violence, and other systems of oppression, and where everyone has equitable access, opportunities, and resources, as well as a sense of belonging. I just want the record to reflect that Reverend Borgertman is now here, And Commissioner Mukaber is, I don't know if he's able to unmute himself and speak.
I'm here, Chairwoman.
Thank you very much. So now I can acknowledge we do have a quorum. And why don't we stay on this agenda item for the moment? Does anyone have any questions or comments about that before we vote to accept it? Do you want me to share it on my screen again? So if no one is raising their hand to make a comment or ask a question, then maybe someone would like to entertain a motion to accept this proposed HRC vision.
Motion to accept, Madam Chair.
Okay. Second, anyone?
Seconded. Chief Bright.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Bright. All in favor, you can raise your hand so that we don't have to have feedback with unmuting. Good. So Commissioner Pish raised her virtual hand. I see that. And Commissioner Mukaber, since I can't see you, can you just unmute yourself and say yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. So the motion to accept this proposed HRC vision, all in favor. Thank you. And let's go back now that we have a quorum. Let's go back to approving the minutes from the February 2nd monthly meeting. So that draft was sent to all the commissioners and it's been on the HRC webpage since within 10 days after the meeting. Any questions, comments, or a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve, Madam Chair, the minutes from the February meeting.
Second it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chief Bright and Commissioner Pish. And all in favor, again, if you raise your hand, if you haven't already. And I just need Commissioner, excellent. So Commissioner Mukaber raised his virtual hand, so all are in favor. Thank you. We're sort of out of Zoom, out of Zoom shape for these meetings. Okay. Okay, so now the next agenda item, which will be where we can spend most of our time, is to review an HRC yearly roadmap of activities. And this is the first draft. And again, I want to just give a little bit of history and context here, where this came from. We've been together and reactivated coming up on 2.5 years. In that time, most of that time, we have not had a director. And so there's been some interruptions in some of the kinds of work that we've been able to do. Based on what we have done for the last 2.5 years, right? So we already have been doing certain events. We've had certain discussions. So based on those events and those discussions, I've created just something that's a loose first draft for us to look at. And before we look at it, there's a couple of things to really make note of. First is, this is a fluid document. So in other words, at any point we can decide, oh, we need to add this activity or this program, or maybe do this in a different way. It's just giving us some outline, almost like a sort of North Star, so we have a little bit of structure to follow. And the other thing is I share my screen. Let me just, I have to pull that up. Just give me a second. Some of these are like bookmarks. So, and we may not get through all of it tonight, but if we can get through a good part of it, that would be great. So I'll share my screen. So this is sort of a loose structure. Tonight's not the meeting to get into details. All of the details and planning logistics would come up in smaller working groups, or Director Correa would work with the mayor's office or other department heads or whoever is appropriate. And wherever you see, like at the top, it says HRC will host events throughout the year. Some documentaries we might host at the library or elsewhere. These are just examples. We're not saying that this is what we're definitely doing. Guest speakers to discuss topics that have been brought in front of us, like critical race theory. Community circles. So we modeled a circle process at our December meeting. And that's something that once the HRC members are trained, we'd like to host those in the community. So just know that as we go down this list, if you see like question mark documentary, that may not be a documentary. It might be a guest speaker. It could be something else. So those are, in a sense, placeholders. So let's maybe take the first few months. For January, in 2022 and 2023, we did the Martin Luther King Jr. tribute event that the school district sort of really organized with their students, who either sang or shared poetry or engaged in a panel discussion. And we've talked about, being able to do that in person. So the idea of putting this roadmap together is that we can start to plan 2-3 months in advance, so that maybe when it says elaborate in person, it might be that it's at an auditorium. There's more activities involved. The community gets involved in certain ways. So we don't really have to get into the details of how that will happen, as long as we start planning it a few months in advance and have the time. February, I'll just actually stay with January and February, is Black History Month. We do have a banner that the HRC created in 2022, which depicts various Black historical figures. This past year in 2023, Senator Edwards came as a guest speaker, and she was wonderful. Also, this past February, the school district did a little program where they created staff profiles of their Black staff, as well as there was student poetry and art honoring Black History Month. And again, just as a placeholder, it could be that there's a documentary such as I Am Your Negro, or it might be that there's a guest speaker that talks about something like Black Lives Matter, or whatever might sort of seem relevant to this month. So that's what we already sort of have some activities that we've done, and a lot of it would be to elaborate on these so that it becomes a fuller month of activities. So I'll stop screen sharing for the moment, but I can go back to that at any point to see if anyone has any comments about January or February. So it seems like if we elaborate on what we already have, it seems like that would give us, those are 2 big months in terms of honoring Martin Luther King Jr. as well as Black History Month. It might even be we invite Black artists to come do something in the city. So if anyone would like to raise their hand and offer any, again, we don't have to go into the details, but just ideas that I'll take note of and I can add them to this document. And if not, I'll give you some time. If not, I'll just go on to March. Okay, so I will, and if you think of something, we can always go back, but for now, I'll just screen share again. Oh, Commissioner Pish raised your hand. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'm thinking of having kind of for February, Black History Month, we can have some activity. What I would like to bring is that activity that the Black community have hosted in different community called the Rain Shout. So I can send that information to the whole group and look at what it is. And the other piece that I have seen people doing, different Black artists been doing also, they build a slave cabin in different community to display for Black History Month. There's something we can also explore and look into it.
So just I want to make sure I'm hearing accurately. Something specific Black artists could do, and you've seen, is to display a slave cabin. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay. And the other, can you just say what the other
It's called Rain Shout.
shout? So rain, like the rain weather, shout, SHOUT.
Mhm.
And what is that? Just to give us a general idea, like in
It's
a
an
sentence.
activity to I'll send you more detailed information.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So, okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Madam Chair, I would say, if Dr. Garcia were here, I mean, working closely with him and students of color in the high school and stuff like that to participate in, I mean, I'm sure there's so much talent there between music, poetry, art. I mean, I'm sure we'd have no problem coming up with some fantastic ideas for those celebrations.
And so it sounds like, I know when I watched the, when Dr. Garcia shared what the district did with the staff profiles and the student poetry, I know there were a couple of Black students that read some very powerful poems, as well as, I'm not sure, I don't think they showed who the artists were of the art, but it sounds like what you're saying is almost like what they did, but really elaborate on it to bring in more of the Black students. Is that it?
Absolutely. Incorporate the youth into all these celebrations,
Yeah.
I think that's going to generate energy, and that's, the growing future of the community.
Right.
And Dr. Garcia is already in his 2.5 years on the HRC, run some fantastic programs in conjunction, with the school department, and anything we do with these celebrations. Now we know the city group to make sure we're not duplicating efforts, all the different, in different silos, that we make sure that we, and through Claudia also, make sure that we're communicating with Jackie from the mayor's office for the weekly, they go over everything that's happening in the city, all the events, or it's like the rolling rally. So.
Yes.
Madam Chair, quickly for correction, it's called Ring Shout, R-I-N-G, Ring Shout.
Ring shout. Okay.
Mhm.
And Chief Wright, to your last point, I know that Director Correa has plans in the near future to bring chairs of the HRC, the Cultural Council, disabilities, mayor's office representative like Jackie, maybe travel and tourism, whoever seems appropriate to be able to start to talk about this, so that, someone might say, oh, gee, we're doing such and such for Black History Month or whatever, so that we're working together and communicating. So that is sort of something that now that Director Correa is in place, and soon someone will be in the human resources director position, she'll actually be able to work on that. So feel free if you need to add anything, Director.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Chief Bright. So yeah, like you said, we are realizing that the need to package everything together, it's there, and the benefit of it is huge. So working on silos doesn't do anything good, right? So there is the Arts Commission, there is the Cultural Council, there is Disability Commission, and internally, let's say, and externally, there are a bunch of cultural groups out there that are thirsty to celebrate with us, to bring their feedback, to see, hey, how can we do a flag raising event? How can we celebrate? What I've been working on is reaching out to those groups in partnership with the mayor's office to establish a system where we can put everything together regarding events. Oh, okay. So for example, okay, we thought about the Arts Commission as maybe putting together an event next month to celebrate XYZ Cultural Day. Let's support them. Let's all work together rather than everyone trying to do something little here and there. It's one of those concepts of we're stronger together kind of thing, right? And more effective, more support. And this goes back to like I said, working with the mayor's office, things such as flag raising events. It's important. It is, you know, it's for example, last year I noticed that there were like there were consulates, like the Salvadoran consulate requesting, hey, can we do a flag raising? And employees, we have a large number of Salvadoran employees who would have loved to be invited to it, and that they didn't know until they were leaving work and their flag was up and like, oh, what happened? So we think that it makes sense that we put all of this in one place. So that's something that I already started working on, and I look forward to looking forward to definitely put it in one place. I think it makes sense, and I will love your feedback. I would love to, celebrations like the Chinese New Year's. We have an employee down on 311, and what she did is that she brought in food. She did everything around it, and then, it was like, this is good. Why not to support that employee that wanted to do that, to bring her culture, her celebrations, and share with all of us. So these are the things that we're trying to put it all in one place to have to be more effective. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So I'll go back to the roadmap, and we'll move on to March, unless anybody else wants to share or speak. Okay, here we go. Okay, so in March, I already had mentioned we do have a banner at City Hall that's fairly new, that the HRC created and recommended in 2022. And I already mentioned these earlier, that the school department and the HRC coordinated to interview those leaders in the community who identify as female. It seems like we have a lot of room that we can elaborate on that. This year it was just, verbal interviews and statements. So there seems like we have a lot of space that we could, do something that with more planning, where it could be an in-person event, and we could have all kinds of different activities around that, whether it's a guest speaker, people from the community, different education or activity, if those who don't even know that March is Women's History Month. So is there anything anyone would like to say? I mean, otherwise what will happen hopefully is next November or December, we start planning for March, and there's plenty of time to sort of really see what's available, what's alive, and what seems to be creative then to work. The details could even change year to year, but just to know that March is a month that we would be targeting Women's History and International Women's Day. Okay. I mean, just something that just came to me is even if well, no, we'll wait till the groups work on the details. We'll go on. So, in April, Dr. Garcia, he and Dr. Barros last year helped host the 21-day Racial Equity Challenge, which was something that people did. It was within the employees in the school district. That it was an online kind of 21 consecutive day challenge. Dr. Garcia is not here tonight to speak on it, but I believe he wanted to offer that again this year. So when we're done sort of going through this, what's on the screen here, Director Correa can mention if she knows any more about that from the Human Resource Department or other areas. April is Celebrate Diversity Month, and Revere is quite diverse, as we know. We're now a minority majority community since the last census. So, would we want to have different cultural flags, particularly of, those that our community represents, like hanging in City Hall or elsewhere? Arab American Heritage Month falls in April. And we do have, I think they created it last year, a Ramadan banner that is hung at City Hall during that time period, which changes every year. It's either in March or April because it's based on a lunar calendar. It is Autism Awareness Month. The city does have a lawn sign. And this could be another month that, depending on what's decided, it could be a month where there's a documentary or a guest speaker or a community circle. That's wherever you see sort of documentary or other event, that sort of means we could decide something like that, depending on what people, what else was happening. So I'll just keep this up because it has a few different items there, and if anyone would like to speak, I'll just unmute yourself. And Commissioner Pish.
April is also Cambodian New Year as well. Just
Thank
want to
you.
share that.
Thank you. I'm making notes that I will add to this for when we look at it next. Anything else that, this is again, just giving us a general roadmap, and as it gets closer when we're planning, a few months in advance, it might be that there's, more than one thing going on, especially with more time to plan.
Madam Chair, I did just want to share that the 21-day equity challenge, I know the commission did last year, as well as several organizations, departments throughout the city of Revere. I'm excited to do that this year. I think I joined just after the commission had completed it. I'd love to see more trainings like this done with departments throughout the city. I think it's great. I know Chief Bright had his department do it. I think there was several other departments throughout the city, but I think the more the merrier, right, to make effective change from within. So I'm excited to do it, and I'm excited to see how many people will do it with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGee. I know last year it was the first year, so we were grateful for what the response was, and the intention was to expand it even into the community. Of course, then we sort of went without a director for quite a while. So, do you have any additional information? I see your hand up, Director Correa.
Thank you. No, definitely what Molly said. It's we're looking forward to doing it again this year. The information, the education that departments that participated was very, very, very high. I mean, the feedback was really good. Some people that started really excited at first, they kind of fade out towards the end, but then towards the end also, we got people that started to join. So that was great. One thing we were thinking about on April 2 is to continue to present REMAP to local organizations and stakeholders out in the community. And this is part of talking about diversity and racial equity. And so you were the first group that we presented REMAP to. Like I said, we're getting ready to start presenting to other groups, and that also includes the city council. So we're excited about that. We every other Monday we have what is called the network response call, which Commissioner Pitch is part of it too. And it's a network response group that came together during COVID. So, but we definitely know it was created in response to COVID under the Department of Public Health. And because it's such a great group, community leaders, public health members, housing advocates, we definitely want to continue to have those meetings. And we think that now the direction for that group may be switching a little bit, which is fine. But that will be the next group for us to where we'll be presenting REMAP to for the next month of April. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
So I made a separate note of that because that's not necessarily something that will be on the HRC's every April sort of roadmap, but I did make a separate note, the same as the new group to coordinate communications. I just made a separate note of that.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yes, yeah. But be mindful, the REMAP is such a big project that it's going to continue to evolve slowly. Remember, this has been on the planning for 2 years. This year is the launching of the internal changes, meaning within City Hall. Next year is the next phase, external changes. Now that will be, again, talking to the community, ideally the HRC, to talk about policies that could be implemented to increase racial equity across the city. So like you said, it's not something that we don't anticipate to be an event every year, but as that evolves, we think that obviously next year will be the different launch, will be the external policy changes that we'll be working on.
So it sounds like the REMAP team will be sort of working with the HRC, since you oversee both. That makes it helpful. And at some point it might be that REMAP becomes part of this, depending on how we continue, how it evolves and we continue to work together.
Absolutely, Chair. So that is part of what we just talked about earlier, packaging everything, making sure that the efforts the HRC have been making, that other groups like HRC with Human Resources, the Mayor's Office, and everyone, I think, again, is to make sure that everything is packaged together to support each other.
Thank you. Anything else for April? Again, it doesn't mean we can't, it's a fluid documented roadmap, but anything else? I'll share my screen once more for April to see if anything else pops up in the moment, but it doesn't mean that it can't from anyone here or from the community. And I'll go down to May. Just let me know if you need me to go back up. Okay, so in May, there's various awareness months. So there's National Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage, Jewish American Heritage, Haitian Heritage, Indian Heritage, and Older Americans. These are all awareness months in May. So I'm not sure, how we will honor all of these in 1 month. How many banners do we want to recommend, or other means of celebration and tribute? Or if this is, a good month for some other kind, so other events that would help support the awareness. Or this is something we can just sort of see that that's there, and we're already in March. So it's time to start to think about, so Commissioner Pish mentioned Cambodian New Year in April. And then we have National Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in May. So those are sort of like back to back. If I
I
don't know.
love that you brought this up. Can I interrupt here and say something?
Absolutely.
I think, yes, about Cambodian Americans and Cambodian New Year, I think particularly HRC should celebrate these things differently, considering the history of the HRC and Cambodian Americans in Revere and why this was started. So maybe it's a great year to talk about that. We can celebrate Cambodian New Year and then celebrate Pacific Islander and all Asian heritage. And we have a Cambodian immigrant on the commission. And I would love to celebrate that and have my fellow commissioner teach me all the things that she can.
Thank you, Commissioner McGee. So, knowing that, there may be a lot of activities and events and awareness months. So how do we do what you just suggested, and at the same time not overlook Jewish American, Haitian, Indian, older Americans, because ageism is also something that the HRC needs to consider in terms of how older Americans might be treated or excluded. Yes, Commissioner Pish.
Madam Chair, I have a question. I know we're talking about celebration and heritages, so on and so forth. Are we also we're talking about awareness. We have Autism Awareness Month. I'm thinking about Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, which is February. Sexual Assault Awareness Month is April. Is it April? I'll confirm. And then Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. I'm just thinking about, like, when we're doing awareness, are we just gonna do like heritages, or we can include others? It's just a question.
Yeah, well, we already, part of what I'm trying to do is see what the city already has. The city already has an autism awareness banner or sign for the lawn. We had nothing to do with that recommendation, but I looked at what does the city already have. So I'll just stop screen share for a moment. So I looked at what does the city already have? Some that we recommended and some that were here before us, like domestic violence awareness. They have a banner for that. They have a banner for autism awareness. It's going to be, one of the challenges will be, how do we decide of all these different awareness months in causes for celebration? Where do we focus our attention and energy? Does that change? And I think that's part of this bigger conversation. Does that change year to year? Do we look at our community and let the demographics sort of speak in terms of our current community and historical community, which seems like a lot of history of Italian American heritage, Asian and Pacific Islander, as well as current Arabic, and of course, Latin. I mean, that's a great, I think the demographics show that the Latin community is our greatest percentage. Is it that, we look at the demographic data and let that help guide us? Do we change it every year? We don't have to have 6 different banners. It could be that a banner might be for one sort of area, and then there might be a documentary or a guest speaker for something else, or a collaboration with the district, with the students. But we also have to, I think we also have to be realistic with who is going to oversee all this.
If I may, I think you touched on 2 very important aspects of this. Awareness means raising awareness around communities and groups that we know that are within the community, issues that we need to be aware of. So my suggestion is definitely to do those things, to talk about the important awareness celebrations, and move forward with those. In regards to civic and cultural events, like you said, Chairwoman, is to take a look at the demographics and say, okay, these are the top 5 largest demographics, or to have something that we can control, something that we can manage, right? And unfortunately, what that leads to the exclusion of some groups. So we have to be aware of that as well. So I will suggest that we think about in a strategic plan around, okay, let's pick these 5 awareness dates that we think we need to start raising some awareness around. And let's pick 5 groups of demographics in the community that we think we need to celebrate culturally, civically, whatever the case may be. Like I said, unfortunately, when we try to cover to all of this, some groups are going to be left out, and that's unfortunate. But it's we cannot. I don't think we can. We don't have the capacity yet to do more than that. That's my suggestion.
Anyone else? Thank you, Director. So I suppose we could go back to the data. Remap, I believe, has this information so that we know like once we see, it might be that, okay, there's these top 5 or 6 or 4, or it might be pretty clear once we see the data. And then we'll need to decide what are some other areas that need more awareness raised up around them.
I would think that that's a good idea. There is, like I said in the past, I don't think there is better tools than data to move forward with making decisions around things like of this magnitude.
Yes, Commissioner Fish.
Madam Chair, may I respond to Director Claudia Correa? It just occurred to me, I know that we might not be able to respond to all group of people, and yet I want us to be aware when we're talking about minority, and minority are the one who get left out, either in race and equity or any culture group. So I just want to make sure that there are some awareness that we're paying attention to, that folk are not being left out. And I'm talking about LGBTQIA community, people with disability, or might be Muslim community and other community that are underrepresented. So I want us to be aware that they are also part of our community, and then we're only celebrating the majorities, right? And that's always happened in the work that we are doing in equity and inclusion. So I just want to add that.
I totally agree. I'm sorry if I may. And again, so I totally agree. So Commissioner Peach, so how about Chairwoman said in the past, now I think with my role and hopefully the assistance of an admin from our end, we'll be able to pay more attention to our website, for example, and the content that is there. So when we say large celebrations, we can consider what we said earlier, take a look at the major awareness celebrations and the largest demographics, but it still recognize those other groups like Commissioner Peach said. So no one is left out some way, at some manner, in our website, or through the group or through talent and culture, or however you suggest will be most effective. So this will require doing some research, absolutely. So I'm open to, I don't know what you think. I mean, like I said, not big celebrations, but it requires event organizing, but at least some type of recognition on the website that we are aware of the groups that are there.
If I could make a suggestion, I would like to suggest that we continue going, we come back to this conversation after we look at the year, because certain celebrations and banners and events and programs have organically come out of our last 2.5 years together. And so I think once we sort of look at that, we might be able to then say, well, are we missing certain key areas? How can we capture other areas with the sort of staffing and, people, volunteers involved? So if that would be okay, I think this is an important conversation, but I'd like to sort of maybe see what we have and then have a better sense of how to either come back to this conversation or then be able to look at what we have and say that there's too much of awareness on such and such, and we need to consider, sort of having that feel more equitable. So is that okay if we just sort of table this conversation till we have a little bit better sense of the overall structure? Okay. So I made notes for April. I'll screen share again, and I made notes for April that besides what you see here, I made a note of Cambodian New Year, and that the racial equity challenge, needs to, this year and going forward, definitely expand into more and more departments, into the community. So those are the two notes that I made, as well as I took general notes about the bigger conversation of celebrations and awareness. Okay, so for May, May was the one that we were on. I'm sorry, May was the month that we were talking about. So we'll sort of, we know that needs to be revisited. And in June, and this is what I meant about what has organically unfolded. Well, last year was the first time there was a Juneteenth celebration. It was the first time that employees had the day off. And it was, if you went, it was a wonderful, wonderful Juneteenth celebration with guest speakers, with drummers, with music, dancing. It was really food. It was really wonderful. So that, and last year also for Pride Month was the first tea dance that was held down in the public area where Drift is, and the new hotel in Fine Line. So those sort of organically just came about over the past year. So that's why I want, and those are sort of two big events that Director Career, I know that Dr. Barros last year was instrumental with the Juneteenth celebrations. So that's something that you'll need to step into. And the Pride Month, I know, falls a little bit more under travel and tourism. But I think that you need to get some basic information, and these are two big events already, that how can the HRC get a little bit more involved or support or give some input on what might be nice to repeat from Juneteenth or try anew. Any comments, questions, anything, or should I just keep going? Just either raise your hand, I'll hopefully see it, or speak up. I didn't put anything for now for July or August. That doesn't mean we won't do anything. I just know July and August, summertime is sometimes a little bit, challenging. But it could very well be that there's, I don't know, some kind of you take advantage of the nice weather and do something outside. But that's sort of either a time for a little bit of a break, or it's a time that we can fill in. We've never done anything. So September 15th to October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month. We have never done anything, nothing. So where we have such a large Hispanic population in the city, it does seem like this is an area that needs some attention. And again, I just wrote down create banner, other festivities, just to sort of put something there so we can acknowledge it. In October, we have Italian Heritage Month, that the city has a pretty strong history of Italian Americans and still current. It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is important. And I know Commissioner Pish does a lot of education and going out. I know she went to the high school, she went to the police department. I know those are only two places I know she went, and I'm sure she went to a lot more to do some education and community circles. The city does have a banner. It's also an opportunity in October, to honor all the Italian Americans, yet at the same time to learn more about the Indigenous Peoples Day and what that's all about, and how we can respectfully honor both. And we have Strong Oak, who is able to be a partner with that. So I think, again, between Italian Heritage, domestic violence, and Indigenous Peoples Day, sort of some awareness around that there's a lot that's going to keep us, I think, busy in October. What we do specifically is to be seen, but I think that's going to keep us busy. November is Native American Heritage Month. So even though Strong Oak may partner with us, for those of you who aren't aware, she is a Native woman who came and did a presentation for us in November. And she came to us through Commissioner Pish. She's a wonderful person, speaker, presenter, and she will be partnering with us just in ways that we can, each of us, have more education around Native Americans, as well as how we can bring this into the community. And then December is Universal Human Rights Month. It's also, I know there's a lot of holidays in December. So that is the overview of the year. If there's something other than this bigger conversation of how do we prioritize, this listing that you just saw is basically a result of what we've already done and felt was important, what the city might already have, what Dr. Garcia in the school district has done. So it just gave us some kind of a starting point, but it can be edited and modified and elaborated as needed. So any questions or comments, other than it sounds like we do need to get the data from REMAP in terms of looking at the top demographic populations in the community to help us. And seeing the whole sort of year at a glance, does it seem like that we're completely duplicating? Are we putting too much attention in one area? Are we completely missing another area? I didn't really see anything for disabilities in that yearly roadmap. I don't know if there is an awareness month, but that's one thing that Commissioner Pish had mentioned, and I did see something for older Americans. I did not see anything for those with disabilities or education around ableism and the privilege that comes with being able-bodied that we take for granted.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually, I think this month is Disabilities Month. I'll have to take a closer look into it. I know that we were looking at important dates for this month, and I know that I wrote it down somewhere that we planned within City Hall to celebrate Women's International Day, and then the other half was going to be around disabilities, but let me actually look it up right now.
Because I didn't.
Yes.
When is it?
I'm sorry, it is March, yes.
March.
Yes.
So, okay.
Because, well, I looked up already this week, some stuff around neurodiversity. Many people are not aware of what neurodiversity is and that it plays a huge role when we're talking about diversity, right? So it's, especially the conversations that we have in now more increased than before around diversity. Some people not that still need some education around what diversity is. They're just thinking around gender and race, right? But it's something greater than that. And neurodiversity is something that I think we have to start making emphasis on, and it has to be now. So that's something that I've been thinking about with from HR perspective, but I'm curious if maybe you're, would like to participate. I know this is perhaps last minute since we're already into the 9th of March, but I'll take your feedback. We can go ahead and start planning it with, like I said, HR, talent and culture, whatever the case may be, and then have the HRC plugged into it. You tell me. I'll follow your leads on this.
One quick thing I want to say is we don't even have that on our calendar on the HRC webpage, which that's where I usually go to see what the awareness months are. So I just made a note on a very basic level to include it on that calendar. So it's awareness, and then I'll let others speak up about what you just asked.
And it's like we said earlier, I mean, and like you said, is we've been learning all of this organically, right? And it's hard to keep track, and as part of being inclusive as possible, unfortunately, we're going to miss out some things, and we have to acknowledge that. It's better to acknowledge that than to say, "Oh gosh, we to defend ourselves." No, we need to be aware that we may miss some groups, some celebrations, but this is when people are welcome to give us feedback and ideas. So we just need to let people know, be transparent about it. We wish we could cover everything, but unfortunately we're not, we're not ready for that yet. But day to day, I think feedback participation is what we need.
Well, on behalf of the HRC, I just want to apologize that it is not on our calendar with other cultural events and awareness months that we it doesn't matter. It's just, we're sorry that it's not there, and it will get added tomorrow.
No, that's fine. Like I said, we all are learning organically, which is good, but we giving it the importance it deserves.
And back to your question, Director, are you asking the members if there are any, even though it's sort of already into the month on March 9th, if there are any ideas that people have that something that could be done that's fairly simple, but in honor of Disabilities Awareness Month, that we can, again, elaborate on the future, but is there anything that anyone has an idea about that we could do over the next few weeks?
Carew, you want to go ahead and maybe you have some
I
ideas?
see Commissioner Pish waving her physical hand. And she just went off video. We'll have to give that a moment. We'll come back to Commissioner Pish. Chief Bright.
I could reach out to my friend Ralph DeChico, and Ralph may have some good ideas for us.
Do you know, does anyone know if Ralph is, like, if he organizes anything, since this is sort of his department? Because getting back to the not duplicating efforts and not stepping on toes, it would be helpful to know he may actually already be doing things that we could support him in, but he might just be the one to take the lead on it.
Exactly. I could certainly reach out to Ralph, have a conversation and get some information. And I know he's multitasked. He's a very busy guy. He does a lot for the city. So, but I'm sure he'll be more than willing to work with us in that regard.
Great. Director Korea?
Thank you. Yes, like the chief said, Ralph is very vested to it. I actually did have a conversation with him last week talking about packaging efforts. And one thing that he and I talked about is I asked him, hey, Ralph, I don't know when was the last time that accessibility to public buildings plans were visited. And he said, Claudia, gosh, that was like 2018. And I say, oh, okay. A lot has happened since 2018. So one idea that I kind of had that it's definitely not like a celebration. It's nothing like that, but I think it's a step on the right direction to even ourselves as a city, taking a look at making sure that all of our buildings are accessible to people with disabilities. On that note, also, we have been working on signage. It's also taking a look at the budget to make sure that, there is money to even talk about rail, things that we need to be mindful in our building. So that's what the direction I was going. Obviously, send pieces of education to all of the city departments, but maybe with your help, sending educational pieces to residents through the HRC, which necessarily doesn't require us to meet, but to send celebration messages to the residents. Those are like two ideas, but going back to Ralph DeChico, yeah, he and I already talked about, I asked him if he had any plans, and he said, all I have is from 2018. So I think it's a way of celebrating and raising awareness that we as the city need to check ourselves first to make sure that we are a welcoming city for everyone with disabilities.
Let's have my hand.
Go ahead. That's okay. Go ahead.
Director Correa, I am wondering, I'm just going back again to be inclusive. At the City Hall, can we dedicate like a one spot, either at the lawn or something, one that we can order, or different banners like Disability Awareness Month banner, autism banner, teen dating violence banner. Teen dating violence is February. In fact, Sexual Assault Awareness Month is April, confirmed for April, and then the Denim Day is April 2, so how every year when we have the major celebration like Christmas and others, we display, like trees and lighting and all of that. So if we can dedicate a one spot that we can post banner, or we can give a message visibly in front of the City Hall, it can be 5 things that happen in May, and then we post all of that we are aware all of those, even those we're not doing any activity, but we are acknowledging visibly, so people can drive by and see it. So that people feel even they are the only one in the city, show in the census, but they can feel like a sense of belonging. I am being celebrated as well. It's like something as small as that.
It's a great idea. I'm sorry about that.
So that it would be some area on the lawn, whether it was, someone would determine what would be the best mechanism, whether it was something that had, like those lights that flash, or I know that they have it at the fire department and the police department, where the messages are easily able to change, whether it's something like that. sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen in Boston, like at the Boston Common, sometimes for certain months, there's just an area where people can like put little lanterns, or like, and again, this would have to be thought out more with other departments. If there was even like a tree that sort of represents, because I'm also just mindful of resources and spending more electricity, more like things that aren't good for the environment. But I think it would be interesting to see what creative ways, different times of the year, you're putting lights on a tree, or other times you might be planting flowers, or there could be different ways that through different symbolism, we can acknowledge, different groups. It doesn't have to just be in words on a banner or on a sign, although those could be it as well. Like this might be something that a different creative team from different departments looks at. Anyone else want to say anything? I mean, I've taken some notes. So as we wrap up with this, I will revise this with some of these comments, add certain notations. There's other notes I have of just the general points that were discussed about the new communication group, about REMAP and its presentations, about the discussion of how do we be as inclusive as we can with these celebrations and awareness months. What is diversity, as well as Disabilities Awareness Month in March. And it sounds, what I heard from the conversation is that even though there may not be a banner up, it sounds like at least there's a very important discussion about looking at accessibility maps. Sometimes that is actually can be more meaningful than just putting up a banner, to actually do something that makes the city more accessible. So is that something, Director Correa, that you're sort of working with Ralph to move that forward?
Correct, yes. Last time I talked to him was late last week, where he confirmed having the plans from 2018 for buildings, doors, signage, and all the stuff that was implemented back in 2018. The goal is to revisit it, make sure that that plan is still active, and if anything has changed, that we put in to make sure tickets or requests to make sure that those locations are addressed. And I mean, like pretty much every building, public building. We're talking about the library, the senior center. We're talking about DPW, definitely not. It's actually under construction, so that's something that obviously even the retirement building, inspectional services, the veterans office building, just making sure that all these buildings, they're not only up to, they're in compliance with ADA regulations, but that, that we are making best efforts, because one thing is to be aware of needing to be in compliance. And another thing is to be really intentional about it. Compliance could say, just an elevator. Well, do we have enough signage to say, if you need to use the elevator, it's easier to find, things like that. So that's what we mean by being intentional about the importance around accessibility.
Thank you. Okay, so to leave with an action plan, I will update this and make a note of these different comments that were more general comments. It seems like because April will be here before we know it, the Director Correa will contact Dr. Garcia about the racial equity challenge. It seems to me not only to include other departments, but how engage people that are doing the challenge. And Cambodian New Year. Commissioner Pish, do you want to, do you feel comfortable maybe offering some ideas or suggestions of where we don't have much time, but is there something that we could do within a few weeks planning that we could do at least for this first year, to make some step towards that?
Madam Chair, I'm more than happy to coordinate that. And then I will share it with the commissioners. I'll send it to you, share it with you, and then you can share with the commissioners.
Yes. And again, it could be that next April we elaborate in other areas. We can look into for May with all those various awareness months, at least start to have the conversations about could there be a central area on the lawn or somewhere to capture multiple awareness and events. And then Director Career, it seems like June, you'll need to connect with, sort of do a little bit of at least legwork of who is involved with Juneteenth and Pride Month. I'm just looking at least those few months, like April, May, June are coming up. So just looking at so that's in our radar a little bit until we're more proactive and that we have more time for planning these. Okay, so anything else on this topic? Otherwise, we'll sort of revisit it again once I clean up this document. And if people have any other thoughts that come up after the meeting, just send them to me by email, and then I can share them, appropriately and accordingly, without having discussion outside of our meeting. Anything else on this topic? Okay. Well, thank you so much. Once we have a little bit more discussion about this, then we'll be able to look more at how do we see this getting implemented? How do our working groups need to support this? So that's sort of where we'll head next. And is there any other business? None noted, none seen. So then I can entertain a motion.
1 second, did we approve the minutes?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And otherwise, I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Clerk.
Seconded.
Second the motion.
Second, and all in favor? Yes. So I report that I am seeing, Commissioner McGee, just put your hand in where I can see it. I am seeing all hands in favor. The meeting is adjourned and we are due to reconvene. I believe it's April 6th, the first Thursday in April, and we should be back in our hybrid at the council chambers as well as on Zoom. Thank you all for those who were here as well as those who may watch this at another time. Thank you.